Welcome, everybody, to Beyond I Do. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes.
Always good to see everybody, even though we're not looking at you, but to at least you hear us. You can see us. We may not be able to see you, but nonetheless, we're so glad that you guys are joining us. I already sent it to Gabe already today because I saw a video, and I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And then I opened up the comments and I was like, oh, I'm astonished. A lot of women, wives, feel this way. And so I guess the premise is that, and we've obviously covered this somewhat regularly, but it led me to the question of like, what do they mean by that? And then I started reading the comments and I'm like, oh, okay, well, are the majority of husbands not doing that? And I know, we've done a lot of counseling over the years. So obviously when we counsel people, we may see this regularly, right? But normally when you go to counseling, it's because there is an issue, right? But like overall, basically the premise is a wife finally hoping that it's a new year, 2025, hoping that her husband will finally take the lead in their marriage. And I was like, oh, that's funny. That's just a joke. And then I read the comments and then it's like, there's literally was like hundreds, if not thousands of comments of wives like, oh my gosh, yes, I pray this every year. And, this, that, and the other. And I was just like, oh my gosh, are there that many guys not, leading and speaking up in their house? Like, is there that many women that feel this way? And it seems like it, which is crazy to me. So we can play the video real quick, Gabe. I can't remember if there's talking in it or not, or if it's just music based with a caption. So
it's like a sound bite.
Oh, okay.
From Trump.
Okay. Oh, it's a Donald Trump thing.
Yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive.
Okay, yeah. So obviously they took a Trump soundbite, but the caption is, like when you ask your husband if he has a plan this year, and then obviously that Trump meme, vocal. But the husband, like, so for those listening to audio, like the wife's basically mouthing the interviewer, and then the husband is responding as if he's, Trump in terms of the concept of a plan or whatever. And then, so I'm like, oh, it's just a married couple making a funny, meme or whatever. And then I look in the comments and it was like literally, I was really astonished with how many women were like, oh, please send this to my husband or whatever. And I was just like, oh, wow. Are there there's that many wives that feel like their husbands aren't leading or aren't guiding their family with a plan, type of thing.
Yeah.
So I was surprised by that. Okay, so here's what, and then I go in the comments and then I'll let you respond. Because I'm like, what do they mean by that?
Yeah.
Like what are they? And then what I then discovered a lot of women, because one of the top liked ones by a few thousand people was like, are we buying a home this year? Are we paying off our car? Are we where are we saving for a vacation? What's retirement look like? Like what are we doing as a family, as a household? Are our kids going to, private school or whatever? Like this woman had like a list of things, and it's like, help us answer these questions, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what they mean. Maybe not all of them, but I was like, okay, that's what a lot. So direction within the marriage and the family and, the finances and the household and all that stuff like that. So I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know there were so many wives who felt so, blind in that.
Well, then I would, because obviously just outside looking in, I would ask the question too, where's the communication and the desire communicated? Because majority of the time when you and I have conversations, or I'm following, like they said, for you to lead, I'm following off of your lead, but it's also conversations and time spent together to where we share our heart and our desire for what we want in our life. And then I follow you to where I say, hey, this is what I would desire. Simple. I desire a gym. We talked about this, 3 years ago? Mm-hmm. My desire was to have a gym, so I'm not running next to the room in the small office where the treadmill's pounding at 6 o'clock in the morning, where you guys are having to sleep through it. And we dealt with that for 3 years. I tabled that. There wasn't, I was like, oh, one day I'd love to have a gym to where I'm not bothering you. But you never complained about me working out. You never said it was a nuisance. You never said that you were tired of it. You never said, my goodness, why can't you just go get a gym membership? You never deterred me from me working out. But it was always in the back of your mind to say, I want to get my wife a gym. It didn't happen for 3 years, and now we're pushing into the 3rd year, and you're like, hey, Ash, I got the gym. I set a desire 3 years ago. You as a husband locked it away and then worked hard and then gave the desire of what that was. But I led with like, okay, as long as he's not complaining about something that I'm doing, he's still leading me in the way that we should go, in the way that we should react, in the way that we should do life. With me being in the small space, and you never stopped me from doing anything that I desired to do, but you continue to lead and I can follow. You allowed it to happen after 3 years, which I'm really grateful for and excited for. But those are conversations that we have all the time. Like you have always said, like one of our desires and our dreams, and we've tabled it too, like leading is to, our desire to travel, whatever that may look like. And we can set it in place to be like, hey, we can dream for this. But I think sometimes too, men, and I could be wrong and you could tell me, men are so focused on working and supplying and providing for the home, they may feel like that is leading. That they may feel like this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm supplying, I'm providing for the house. This is a big weight, this is a big stress, this is a big struggle of mine because I want to make sure all ends are met with finances, with the mortgage, with electricity, with water, gas, well, all of it. That is my desire, is to make sure my family is good. I believe the wives could be dreamers. And I believe wives can be dreamers as far as it's acceptable and reasonable. So I know that you travel, you speak, you have a lot of pressure, you have a little weight. And where's my one place I desire to go, but have tabled it because I know life is life? I want to go to Japan. That's a desire of mine. That's a desire that we would love to have. That's a desire that you still lead in all other areas. You still supply in all other areas. You still comfort in all other areas. I think when it comes to conversations, we as a couple, we can dream together, but it's where women desire their husband to lead. Because if they're leading financially, protection, covering, I don't think you can really be upset with that. The things that you can be upset with are the material things. Yeah, fine. Paying off the house, okay, yeah, let's now, okay, you're working, I'm working, let's set a goal. But I feel like sometimes in relationships, we have to have communication with our husbands to say, what type of person are you? Like, I know you're not type A. You can be in certain areas, but I know you're not type A.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if you're a type A woman, then there are certain things that you can lead in a relationship that doesn't require the man to take full advantage of in leading the home. Like you take lead in the children.
Yeah.
That's fine. You take lead in the finances. That's fine. Because we've talked about it. There are times and seasons in our lives where you may have the kids more and I may have work more in taking women out or events or whatever that may look like, or vice versa. I have the kids because you're traveling, you're speaking, all of those things. I don't take it as you're like, oh, well, Ashlee, you're up for the lead now. I think we just need to take ownership in a relationship to say, you know what? That may not be their strong suit. Them creatively may not be. So let me continually add little hints. And hey, sometimes I know there's women too. Erica, she loves to travel. She booking that trip. Aaron, this is where we're going. Yeah. She's not waiting for her husband to take the lead. She's just going to do it. Not to say that he can't do it, but if that's her strength, Aaron has said that is not my strength.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely okay. I think we're desiring our men to lead in all areas, be genie in the bottle, read everything, be able to see everything. And we are women and we are complicated.
Yeah.
There are times where you've even come home, Ashlee, what's wrong? Nothing. And you're like, I know something's wrong. You know what I mean? Your husbands can't read it all. And it's not for a wife to be like, well, I got to lay it out plain for them. Sometimes you do, girl.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I'm sorry, you do.
Yeah.
You do. Because we are a ball of emotions, and we have to be able to express our emotions in a very good communication way. But I think that's all has to do with relationship. You have to have a healthy communication of where you desire and where your strengths and weaknesses are with your spouse to where you want him to lead. Because the last thing I want you to lead in is cleaning my counter. I don't need you to clean my counters. Please don't do that, because then I'm going to see a spot and it's going to make me mad.
Yeah.
I don't, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If I personally think that there are certain things that we as women have to be able to say, you know what, I'm good with leading in that.
Yeah.
Please let me lead with that.
Yeah, well, like in our instance, which is different probably than most marriage or relationships, because, I probably lead in like 90% of, our family and household. So I lead in, yeah.
I was the 99.
Yeah.
I got like the .9.
Yeah, but I lead financially. I have multiple forms of life insurance. I have a retirement. I have multiple versions of retirement. I do all of our stock investing.
Yep.
You wouldn't even know.
Nope.
I remember one time we drove by man, I'm forgetting. I'm blanking on a Charles Schwab. And I told Ashlee, hey, if I ever die, I have quite a few accounts with Charles Schwab right there. It was a building, and obviously I have a life planner that if I died, they would come and tell Ashlee everything that I had. But I told her, hey, just a heads up, I have accounts with Charles Schwab. Anything ever happens to me, I have accounts in stock and held with them. And she goes, oh, I thought that was a grocery store.
Sure did.
And I was like, no, it's a financial institution. And she was like, oh, I've always driven past those Charles Schwabs. I thought they were like back with like Fresh and Easy was a thing and stuff like that.
Women, you can't be all three, smart, cute, and funny. You got to pick two.
Yeah. Yeah, you're something all right. And so, so in those areas for us, I lead in those areas, and we for the most part, we collaborate vacations, but most of the time how we're going to get there financially, is me. And, sometimes I'll tell you like, well, if you could just get the flights for that, that would be great, or whatever. But, and we talk to each other ahead of time. And so I lead in, majority of those areas, but where I don't lead is like, sports for the boys. You do like, hey, this is the sport Matthias is going to play this season. This is practices. I have practices where, I know majority for most households, even though the mom may take the child to practice, but it's usually the husband who's like, if the husband's passionate about sports, I'm going to put him in baseball. I'm going to do this and this and this in sports. But that's, you do that because that's your strong suit. You were a professional soccer player, all that kind of stuff like that. And so in that sense, like, you to your point, like you have to define exactly what leading is. And, I think it's a good point you made that, like, could it be that he's so focused on just getting day to day in terms of putting food on the table, paying the bills, overarchingly, stereotypically every household's different, but, still most people we know who are married to have children, the men carry most of the financial burden, if not, 50-50. And so, could it be, men are very singular, men are very focused on what's in front of them. Is it that he's focused on, reaching and he's thinking to himself, well, when I joined the job, they gave me retirement with this, they gave me medical, so I'm not thinking about it, like, what's our retirement plan? And he's like, well, I don't know. It comes out of my check every month. And when we do retire, we'll cross that bridge. And she's saying, I want to know right now. And we're 30. And it's like, okay, well, for a guy, he may, if he's not built that way, he may be like, oh, I don't know, if that's not his strength. And then also I think there's an element that I think women get away with this a lot more than men in some areas, but like, in some stuff, men just don't care.
I agree.
So they're just like, there's times you've asked me stuff, hey, do you prefer this or this? And it might be about like a family thing or your family thing. And I'm like, I don't care. Just tell me what time.
Doing.
Just look at my calendar if it's open.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to know where we're going? No, I don't, I'm sure it'll be fun. Like I'm going to make the best of it. We'll have a good time. We don't, and there's been many times we've gone somewhere either with your family or something else. And I'm like, what are we doing today? What is it? Yeah. And you're like, oh, we're doing X, Y. I'm like, okay, sounds fun. Like, it's not because I don't care necessarily, but I didn't care about the process of like planning it or where we're going. It's like, family guys are just family guys. They're just like, yeah, if our family's together, let's go. I'm not worried about it. And so, where I think some men get a bad rap on like, well, they're not leading, they're not planning. It's like, well, let's qualify what it is. And, is it a shame that there might be some areas that he's just could be like, I don't have I'm good. Like, tell me what you want. And I'd love to make it happen, because there are a lot of men that work hard that way. Like, so in your case for your gym, it's like, if you had asked me 3 years ago, when do you think I can get my own gym that's separate from our bedroom and blah, 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 my answer would have been like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what work's going to look like for me in the next year or two.
Right.
I don't know what, side with my other businesses, what kind of income is going to generate with that per se. So in theory, I could tell you, well, if we save a couple $1,000 a month, yeah, it could be done. Like if I took that approach, I could maybe give you a rough answer, but I still don't know, so, but for me as the husband, it was always in the back of my mind that was like, okay, I get a little money here, put it away, get a little money here, till finally I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I could do it. Then I came to you and I'm like, I could do it within this year, and we're on the tail end of it about to be done. And so it's that sense of like, just because a man isn't articulating, his excitement or it's going to happen here, he may genuinely not know how or when it can happen. But I'll tell you this, for a lot of guys I know, what I would say, a lot of traditional men, if he gets offered an extra shift, he would probably take it because he would get you one step closer to what he knows his wife desires. And so if you want a bigger car and you're like, is he leading? Is he going to get us a bigger car or not? Like, probably for the most part, I would say it's in the back of his head. It's there. He wants to do it. And every opportunity he'll have to make more income for his family, he'll probably take it to get you one step closer to a larger vehicle that you may feel. But, to blame him and be like, well, you're just not leading because you're not giving us answers. I think no guy wants to tell his wife like, well, that's because I don't know. I don't have answers. Because then it's like, well, how do you not know? Are you not, it's like, well, then that's even more terrible.
Are you not prepared? Did you not think of this? Did you not?
Yeah, I'll just call my dad. My dad will be, it's like that kind of stuff. And then it's like, okay. So I think there are elements to it, to your point of like why a guy may be blamed for not leading. And then there could be another element where he's just not and he's aloof. And if that's his case. But like when I saw this video, like this couple filming it, they didn't seem, her husband was participating. So I doubt, I don't think, I think there was fun, I think they were doing it humorously and, it's, as a stereotype. But even for them, it was like, they're in a very beautiful home, filming this in a gorgeous kitchen. So it's like, y'all are working and doing pretty well, like in terms of direction, like it seems like on the outside looking in that, by the way that your house is, like, you're very blessed. Right. So,
yeah, I mean, I take it completely as a joke that they were just basically, the husband's just like, I got a plan, there is a plan, and the plan's going to happen. But also in that sense too, I mean, I think women want men to articulate more of what that plan is. And sometimes, like you said, I don't know, but we're surviving. Mm-hmm. I'm providing. We live a good life, and give me that. Mm-hmm. Give me that enough. Like, and that would be something like for me. If like I know you worked so many hours a week, and then I come home and I'm like, well, you're not leading with the boys because you don't do bath time with them. That you should be doing bath time, or you don't do the homework with them. And I'm looking, and I'm like, but if I were to reflect and I were to say, okay, Ashlee, what is Adam's job? And I would just say, okay, and there's certain areas where Adam, probably for at least 20 hours of his week, he's doing his own personal homework because he's studying. Mm-hmm. So there are certain things too where as a wife we can reflect and say, what can we remove from our husband's plates as well to where we can lead in because we'd be better at it, one, or two, it would just alleviate other things too, to where we could say, oh, okay, well, he leads because he picks the boys up every single day, or he leads because he drops them off every single day, or he leads because he wants to make sure that he's taking them out one-on-one and he's investing in my kids in a certain area or a different way. We as wives too, I always tell women, and this is just my personal opinion, we hold a big mantle too when it comes to our marriage and our relationship. And I believe that women have a big voice in a marriage. Mm-hmm. And you could either build up your marriage or you can break down your marriage. And if you start to nitpick at what your husband isn't doing because you desire them to do the little minuscule thing, you'll start to deteriorate your marriage and start to break down your husband. Him leading your home financially is what God has called him to do. He's to labor, work hard, provide in that sense. So as a woman, we are to uplift our husbands and to encourage our husbands. But then it's also to where I find myself is I'm your helpmate. So the areas where I know that you can be better at, I encourage you in those areas.
Yeah.
And that's in those leading areas of what that may look like. Hey, Adam, me and Matthias are having a hard time, and I know you're more patient when it comes to homework. Can you step in? And you guys get the whole homework packet done. Like, there are certain things, there's just a little encouragement to say, hey, I think you would be better in this area than me because I may not know financials. Adam, I don't know this. So can you please do? I think it's all in communication, but it's on the way you communicate and understanding we are a team and we are to help each other in our weaknesses, but encourage each other in our strengths. And I think that we get to a point in our marriage sometimes where we're just, oh, here we go again. He's just doing it again. Have you talked to him? Have you sat him down? Have you reminded him? Have you encouraged him? Have you uplifted him? And so I think we get into this groove of like, someone needs to send that to my husband. No, actually, how about you have a conversation and a healthy conversation starter? That's the start of conversation. Hey, hon, I saw this TikTok today and it was talking about a husband having a plan and it was making a joke and he was talking about Trump, talking about, do you have a plan? I have a sort of a plan. And it stirred something up in me and it just talk and process it with him and say, I feel like we need a plan in our finances. What do you think about us paying off, if that's the case, paying off our home in the next 3 years? What does that look like to you? Does that cause more stress? Does that cause more anxiety? Does that sound? I just feel like
I like that you think you could pay off a home in 3 years.
I didn't. I'm just saying. Karen and Cass could.
probably.
Karen and Cass is the only people that I think could pay off a house.
Maybe a car in 3 years. You can pay a car. Ashlee has no concept of finances.
None. And they win the lotto in a year. But yeah, so,
right.
Whatever, or pay off our house, whatever it is, if you've already been married for umpteen years, whatever that may look like. I think it's just all in the approach and the conversations that you have. But we as women, we love to talk. There's a lot of women that love to talk, to discuss, to process. And so I think that it's having those healthy communications with your spouse of how to...
Yeah. And I think there's knowing what each spouse is great at is really good. And everybody should know that. If you don't know that, if you don't know what your spouse is great at, then you're going to be in trouble. Like, especially as you have children and stuff like that. Like, I know what you're really good at. You know what I'm really good at. I know what you're not so good at. You know what I'm not so good at. And obviously there's times you get selfish and you're married. And so you both act like children at times. But that stuff always happens because you know what I'm good at. I know what you're good at. But we often ask each other to do what we know we're not good at just because we're selfish. We're like, hey, you do this or whatever. I'm not going to do it, But that happens. But overall, be on the page and be like, hey, for us, you're like, okay, Adam can plan out the finances well to plan our year, vacations, if there's, car issues, to be able to have the finances to take care of that, emergency funds, all that kind of stuff like that. Like you don't have a concept of that. You haven't really ever had to do that. You went from living with your parents straight to me, so there wasn't really much of a time period where you were managing that on your own. And so,
the good life.
A true daughter. You had a great dad that spoiled you, and so then you had to find a husband that lived up to that same standard. So. I've heard that before, and I was like, yeah, that's true. Like, I don't have daughters, but luckily enough, I forgot who said it, but they said with my with my sons, I'm going to teach them how to work hard, how to own a career, or have a career, all that, be successful, everything like that. And then it's like with my daughters, I want to spoil her so much that she'll accept nothing less from another guy, And so I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty, if I had a daughter, that's definitely how it would be. But
Facts.
I married that daughter, so I know, I know what that takes. And my mother-in-law would 100% agree. With that, even though she wasn't the one directly spoiling, it was mostly Tom. Yeah, but in that way, it's like we know how to fill in each other's strengths and weaknesses, and so I don't think you would ever expect me in the long run to be passionate or good at something that you're passionate and good at, and so every household is different. So, like I grew up in a household, my mom managed all the finances. My dad's paycheck went straight to my mom. She cashed it. She managed finances. Now as they've gotten older, he has multiple businesses. So when he wants play money or whatever, he operates it from other businesses that he runs and operates. But still to this day, like my mom manages the household finances. She still writes checks for majority of her bills and mails them and all that kind of stuff like that. And so, I grew up in a household that wasn't like my dad led in that area. I didn't, my mom and dad both didn't really cook, and when my mom did cook, it was pretty rare. And so it was often eating out or eating quick, throughout ministry. But it's like, in our household, I manage our finances. So I didn't grow up in a home that I saw that. I do majority of our cooking in our home. And so I didn't grow up in a household where I saw that. But for my parents, what they had dynamically, my mom would never say my dad didn't lead. I've seen my dad lead, but my mom covered if we're going on vacation. She's the one who checked in at the hotel and all that kind of stuff, because my dad has a very, Mexican style work ethic. So to him, he's like, I'll give 90 hours of work week to the job and you handle everything else, which is a really Hispanic household type thing. Like mom, and it's very, it's also very Old Testament as well. Like wife handled everything home economic wise, even paying the bills. And then the husband, like he just busted his butt, worked, and brought it all to the wife, and she managed it and dispersed it from that point, So that's kind of the house I grew up in, and our dynamic looks very different. And my brother Nathan's dynamic has differences, but all in all, I think all of our wives would be like, yeah, my husband leads, and so leadership isn't like necessarily, well, does he pay the bills? Does she do this? Does she do that? It's more so of, does the wife feel confident with where the family is headed? Is there fear? Women, like when you were pregnant, we know this with most women, when they get pregnant, there's a season where they start nesting, start preparing the whatever space they live in for the child to come. And, it almost happens overnight. A hormone kicks in, and they went from not really caring, maybe they cared theoretically and excitement of having the baby, but then it becomes, well, the crib, and I got to have this, and the baby needs to feel comfortable. There's this nesting approach that takes. And I think, when women become mothers, that season technically never ends, in the sense of there's a lot of trust the wife puts to the husband to say, are we going to be protected? Are we going to be provided for? Do I have to worry about, are we going to be here next year or next month or whatever that is? And so I think there's an element of responsibility where the man, 100%, that's what he's responsible for, is to make sure, not even financially, fiscally, because it could be dual income home or whatever, but does my wife feel safe? Does she feel cared for? Does she feel like we're headed somewhere? Does she feel like there's direction? Or does she feel like we live in a volatile state as a family, that at any point, this could not be a reality, or at any point, any dream we have could not be fulfilled because I don't know where my husband is. He's fickle. He has a new job every 90 days or whatever that is. Or, he used to work 40 hours and then, he hasn't put a new job application off because he's been, paused part-time or whatever. And it just seems like he's coasting. Like that brings a lot of fear to a woman.
Right.
And that brings like, are you leading? Like that I could understand. That I could be like, okay, I get that. And we've seen that before. We've sat with counsel with people like that, talk with marriages like that we've seen. But the dynamics on how this plays out. So like when women were commenting like, are we going on vacation this year? Or are we like, I'm like, well, maybe if that's your strength, you should go to your husband and be like, hey, I got 3 vacations that I recommend we take by July. And, I got 3 different price points.
Right.
What do you think about those?
100%.
Yeah. And No, I can't assure it, but he might be like, yeah, that one looks nice. Let's do that one.
Or-
you know,
or-
like, oh, that looks cool.
Like
You know?
me, who's crazy and wants to do a cruise because I love cruising, and I bring it to your attention, and you look at me like I'm crazy because we got 32 other trips like we before that one.
Yeah.
But that all goes in the communication because I always say this, like when it comes to knowing strengths and having that open communication, you handle all the finances. So when it came to me presenting this cruise that I desired to go on, not the desired, I just threw it out there, and we had an argument about it, and it was. I know
we
guys
talked about it on here.
Yeah, no, we didn't.
Yeah, we did.
Beyond the letter.
No, we didn't. You talked about
Really?
me when I was not present.
Did we do the guys one?
Oh, and you talked about me when I was not present or in the
Probably.
room.
You don't listen to Beyond the
defend
Letter
I don't,
anyway.
because it's 7 hours long.
Why Nancy snitching
Thank you,
right
Nancy.
now? Nancy's
Thank you.
snitching. I thought we did cover that.
Thank you, Nancy. So then, okay, so then
I'm
if you
gonna
guys
look
want to hear
at
it, then
and
I'm
people
going
in
to
the
put it back.
comments.
Okay,
I think we did after.
No.
You kind of did talk about it.
We did talk about it on here.
No, we did
For
not.
sure it was talking about
no,
Beyond
we
the
did
Letter,
not.
but
no, we did not.
People will know in the comments.
No, they
They'll
didn't,
tell
because
you.
then I would want to ask them in the comments. So we're not going to talk about it. And then if it's crickets, I want you guys to put emoji of a cricket.
No, you could talk about it,
No,
but I'm
because I want them
saying-
to put the cricket, because then I want to say, I asked for the cruise, why wouldn't we go on the cruise
should.
then? No, don't say it. Don't, because what was going to
Just
come
say
before
it.
the cruise? The cruise I was going to book in November, and something was happening in October.
I know I talked about it with Aaron
No,
and Jermaine. I'm
okay,
saying,
yeah.
but I'm pretty sure we did it in
Y'all,
this
we finna
episode
fight
too.
on this episode. Talking about me not in the room. What'd you
Yeah,
say
we
about
talking
me?
about
What'd you
our
say?
wives.
Tell me.
I don't remember. I don't.
Bring
We
it.
do 3 of these
Bring
a
it.
week. I don't.
Bring it.
Put all your desires.
Yeah, Nancy,
Yeah.
now you can't bring that
Yeah,
back.
there we go, Nancy.
Well, whose side are you on? Anyways, I guess you guys have to listen Beyond the Letter.
I'm pretty sure
That's
we
a plug.
talked about
Go
it.
Beyond the Letter, then
The
come
one with
back
Jermaine
here.
and Aaron.
How dare you?
No, we did. Yeah, but it was. I don't even remember the context of what we were talking about. But it was that. It was. Yeah, we did. You wanted to go on a cruise 1 week after we're renewing our vows, and I'm paying for this whole wedding.
Wedding,
And
yes.
You were like, oh, I
Yeah,
want to go on
say it,
vacation
say
a
it,
week
say
later.
It, say it with chest. Say it how you said it on Beyond the Letter.
Yo, because I think we did it on
No, we
Beyond
did
Ideal.
not.
But
I do
everything's
not
a
have
blur,
amnesia.
so I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Yeah.
This jerk. Anyways.
I do a lot of episodes, so you can't blame me for not remembering what episode, what show was what, and what did we talk about.
I was like, no, I would have remembered that, because that would have been like. oh,
You don't
dang.
remember anything on top of that. But
I just remember.
Anyways.
Yeah, I don't remember finances. But anyways, so what I was going to say, I'll tell you guys, because I'm sure now you guys are so in tune. So we have obviously our year planned out of what we're going to be doing this year. And obviously financially, like Adam said, he'll give to where or I'll give to certain things. So we have a couple trips coming up. Well, we're renewing our vows in October. And just so happened on the top of January, Royal Caribbean, which all of you guys know, I absolutely love cruising. And so they're doing a special. So plug for Royal Caribbean. Do a cruise, 60% off, second guest, and depending on the months that you go in, June or July, don't go then, kids sell free. So we have a
Yep.
new ship that's coming out of LA, and I was like, oh my gosh, a new ship's coming out of LA, a 6-week trip, pulled it up, looked it up, because I'm just excited.
6-week
Or,
trip.
sorry, 6-day trip.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
6 weeks.
I was like,
Good,
what in
God,
the
good
world?
gosh. 6-day trip, and it was only $2,100. It's $2,000. So I was like, that is a steal for 6 days, all inclusive, out of LA. Don't have to buy flights. I know, guys, go book it right now. You'll see 60% off. Still running the promo. So I send it to him, and immediately he does, like, not immediately, he doesn't respond. So I was like, oh, okay. What? This is a steal. Mind you, like I said, it's in November, and we're renewing our vows in October, and it's at a destination in October. So he doesn't respond. And so then we get into it, and this happened on Christmas. Actually, it was on Christmas, because it happened on Christmas. And so we get into it on Christmas. And so I was upset, he was upset. And this was the first time, like, I don't think I kind of started doing the next morning, woke up, I did my cleaning, my angry cleaning. So I started cleaning everywhere. And so then Adam goes, oh, so you're not going to talk to me? I said, not the attitude that you gave me last night. No. And then he was like, not my thought, you can go now.
I could go now.
Because I don't want to get your words wrong, because you'll be like, that's not what I said.
No, it was pretty simple, but it was. I thought what you did was extremely inconsiderate. I said, 2 weeks later, you're trying to go on a cruise when I'm, paying
Busted my
for a
butt,
renewal
yes.
with all our friends and families that's gonna come, and I'm paying for all this all year. And, here you are and you go, oh, it's $2,000. Like, no, it's $2,000 on top of everything else that I have to pay for 2 weeks prior. And so I just said, I felt that it was extremely inconsiderate. And we said on Beyond the Letter that you had invited Jermaine and Jasmine because you were like, oh, it's just an idea. And I'm like, no, it wasn't an idea, because you're inviting people. So and immediately in my head, I'm like, oh, how do I do this for her? How do I make this happen? And then I'm like, no, this is selfish. This is inconsiderate. This is not, like, what she did was wrong. But you said, oh, I was just thinking out loud. And then I said, well, then that's how we're missing each other, because as your husband, when you articulate something, we tend to be, other than this person's Instagram that posted, men tend to be doers. So we hear our wife and she says, oh, I'd love a bigger kitchen. We immediately start going like, okay, do I expand it? How much would it cost to renovate it? Do we buy a new home? Do I sell it? How much are, and then we're online. How much would my home go for right now? Well, what are bigger kitchen homes going for? Right? We're moving, and then we come to you and we're like, hey, so I talked to a contractor and he said it's going to cost $40,000 to redo our kitchen. And then you're like, no, I don't want to spend that to read it. That was just an idea. And it's like, as a guy, you're like, oh, I just
spent all that time.
I just did everything thinking that when you brought it up, this is something. But women, they think out loud. Oh, I was thinking about doing my nails this way. And then yes, no, maybe guys say, oh, I think you get nails that way. They're thinking, okay, yeah, you do need money for it. What do you need? No, I was just asking you if you like it. So for you, you're like, oh, I was just telling you it's a good deal, and you're the one in charge of the finances. So if you knew we could do it, you would say yeah. Yes. And if you knew we couldn't, you'd say no. And I'd say, well, that's not the way it came off. It didn't say, hey, babe, what do you think about this? You didn't send me you texted to me first, and within 5 minutes, you're inviting people and saying, what do you guys think about this? And yada, yada, yada. So then I was like, that's what had made me upset, was that you didn't value what I was already working on and doing, which I think the equivalent would be like, you work on getting Matthias to practices and his games, and then one day I just come home and I'm like, hey, I signed Matthias up for jiu-jitsu. It's 3 days a week and you're going to have to take him, and it's like, oh, thanks for signing me up for that too. Right. I think that's the equivalent in the sense of finances, since I take care of that. You're just like, oh, I'm going to sign us up for a cruise. And then you could have been like, well, I'll pay the $2,000. And I'm like, well, I'd rather you pay money towards the renewal. Yeah. Like if you're going to spend money, help me with this. Yep. Don't that's not extra money. Then I would like, well, then I don't want to give you money for that. And so, it's like, because you would say, oh, if I sign Matthias up to jiu-jitsu, and if you had something those nights, you'd be like, well, then you take him. Right. Well, I'm not taking him. You take Matthias to practice. That's our deal. Yeah. That's what we've agreed on, right? It's like, and then that's when marriage start to miss each other, is when we're not communicating ahead of time, or even it may sound ahead of time, but it sounds very decisive, and it sounds very like, hey, this is what we're gonna do, and then we impose more effort on our spouse without knowing what kind of season they're in or anything else like that, or how they're feeling in the moment. So to a husband to be like, are we leading? Are we doing this month? And he's thinking, I just finally got us in our apartment, right? Or I just, we just got a car. What do you mean you want to go on vacation this year? You want to, like there's a lot. And even we had that talk this year, because normally we do about maybe 2 to 3 vacations a year. And you were talking about vacations, and I was like, Ashlee, I'm renewing vows. Like, I can't give you as many vacations as we normally do. Right. I got to pay. I'm paying for a wedding for us. Do you not want this? And you're like, no, I want it. I just want that too. It's like, I can't give you both. So now you're stressing me out, So then I guess my
my statement about is, well, I kind of said it. I was like, women can be dreamers within reason, and good communication as far as the desires that they have or wants that they have, and making sure that the husbands are fully aware and don't feel like they're not being, I guess the word, it wouldn't it wouldn't be an inconsiderate thought of having those. Like someone in the comments saying, I want a vacation. Well, what does that look like? Are you trying to go to Bora Bora? Like, let's go to Disneyland down the street, like within reason. Like, let's have those talks and let's have that communication. And I think every woman should be able to have that communication with her husband as far as if they want him to lead, allow him to lead. Ask questions, don't just tell. So that's pretty much what you're saying, is if you're desiring to have someone lead, you have to come at a posture of like, hey, so I like the cruise. I noticed that the cruise they have a great special going on. I know we have the wedding. Do you think that would be something we could add as well? And you'd be like, at this point in time, I think your posture would have come completely different. Been like, hey, Ash, no, because it is so expensive. We have very limited space to do something else. I think it's all in the posture of what you're dreaming and within reason.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So,
well, that's that.
And if y'all didn't hear this before, if y'all didn't hear that story before,
I don't know who. Well, and then we got a different director between Andy and Gabe, so I don't know what episodes he's been in. I thought we talked about it before, but you
no,
could be
and
right.
it was not Andy.
Could be
Andy
right.
was not in here.
You might
Gabe.
be
Don't
right.
be
As
doing
we're
that.
talking about it, it could be right. I'm for sure talking about with Jermaine. But the premise was what I just said,
tell me.
which was women and men are different. Women ideate out exterior. Men, when they make it exterior, it's been decided. And so, he was the one who led it and said, Erica always stresses me out because she says, I want this. And then I work to do it. And then when I present it to her, she's like, oh, I'm past that. I wasn't even interested in that, and he thought so he's like, I'm learning my wife to not take everything so serious. And then she's learning from me, or he said, I'm trying to do a better job at ideating for her because she, he's like, I'm trying to bring her in on the process. So then that's what led to be like, oh yeah, me and Ashlee just had that situation for sure. And then as always, Jermaine said some things and,
Don't be telling my business without me here.
he said,
I don't need you lying on me.
It's a public podcast. You
I
can
don't
listen
need you
to it
lying on me.
anytime. It's all over the internet.
Just tell me.
It's not like it was a private conversation.
Tell me at what minute it happened. Because was it minute 30 or
it was the whole podcast, I think.
Two hours.
I think it was the whole episode, to be honest. Jermaine really shared some things with us that day. So,
Nancy's over here eating popcorn.
All right, everybody.
All right, guys.
Peace.
Bye.